recording.
Yeah, and Shane was going up here in that session. Yeah, I'm gonna go second. Oh, is she gonna repeat that? Yeah, because we had a. So she's gonna talk about emergency response, you refer your work. Yeah, I talked to her last week. Yeah, catch up call. So.
Yeah, I think so. Are you the closest with the most? CSM, CMF?
I was telling her about what she said. Stuff she said, yeah, like research. So she connected. Yeah.
How's it going, man?
I'm excited.
See you. I was just super fall. Just up for today? Were you here last night?
Yeah.
I tried to remember Freddie, but
Yeah.
I texted Freddie.
That's all we can do.
You know, the picture you guys gave me. Yeah, where's David?
It's almost. You want both? I think so.
All right.
Everybody was,
Maybe it's.
everybody was, everything. Or an hour all meeting. That's it for everything.
It says.
This is just.
Oh, all people never wrote that.
I think this one. They've got some.
I actually have a lot of hair. Shaving off my head. That looks good.
It doesn't make it. Mine's around. Mine's not. It's
Stop
not.
reading my stuff, I work with, yeah.
I didn't eat those. You didn't?
Rich,
Way too.
did you know I had to put my son in a helmet to shake his head for about 6 months or so?
I didn't eat breakfast.
Patrick's right here. Yeah.
Oh,
And,
okay, I hope that might.
yeah,
Not.
like one side of my head was a lot
I can't believe you guys.
working with it for my GM.
I got many texts. Hey, I see you running around. I'm like, thanks.
But talking to my wife.
Did you not see that when I said? It's gonna happen. I was zoomed in on you all. All right.
About 4 months ago, UK football player helmet and.
I know they're one. Hang on.
Why not? They're sitting there. Just plowing. It's push forward. We gotta get going. Chop, chop.
It was an interesting 4 months. but
Oh, yeah.
Wonders like, did you just have brain?
It might be hot.
Treated really delicately and smile a lot. I'm not used to smiling. So it was nice.
Y'all good?
We're good.
Y'all ready to go?
Think so. Going to go recruit. Oh, you mean outside the building? Pay people, here's $2. Go listen to this guy.
All right, good afternoon. Glad y'all made it in here from lunch. The session right after lunch is pretty tough. You know, everybody got a full belly, but you've made it to the session that's going to cover the CMF selection tool for Kentucky. This is being presented by Souleyrette. He's the KTC, the Kentucky Transportation Center Program Manager for Planning and Data Analytics, the Civil Engineering Department Chair at UK. He's got 30+ years of experience in safety, planning, and data research. As a former chair of TRB Data Section, PE in Kentucky and Iowa, and has his BS and MS in Civil Engineering from University of Texas and PhD from UC Berkeley. We also have Riana Tanzen. She is a PhD candidate at UK. Her major is transportation engineering, and her primary research focuses on incorporating crash severity and variability in safety project prioritization. William Staats is a research engineer with the Kentucky Transportation Center's Traffic and Safety Program. He began his career with the center as a grad student and came on staff in 2016 after completing his master's. His research expertise includes roadway and asset inventory management, roadway safety features, the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and HSM guidelines. He received both his bachelor's and master's in civil engineering from UK and is a member of the Kentucky section of ITE. And Alex Wang. Dr. Wang is a research engineer at KTC. Prior to joining KTC, Dr. Wang worked as an assistant research scientist at Texas A&M Transportation Institute on transportation planning, utility engineering research. He also worked as a postdoc associate at UK and the Alabama Transportation Institute on transportation safety and policy related research. He received his BS and MS in civil engineering from Iowa State and graduated with a PhD in civil engineering from UK in 2016. He's a registered PE in the state of Kentucky. So he's been around, he knows a few things. I'll go ahead and pass this off to him.
Thanks for the kind introduction and really good to be here. First conference I've been to since COVID, so it's great to get a little bit of normalcy back. We're gonna tag team this today, and I'll just give a brief introduction and then a few remarks at the end to set the stage for the project, and I'll let my colleagues Alex and Riana go over some of the details for you. So this is a project that was sponsored by the state SBR program. It actually started in 2016, and was essentially completed about a year or two ago, and we have been working to implement the project ever since. So in the last partnering meeting we had 2 years ago, Eric made a nice presentation to kind of go over what the scope of the project was. So I want to reintroduce you a little bit to that today in terms of where do we typically find crash modification factors and how we use them. Talk about the goals of this project. Talk about how the KYTC came up with a list of countermeasures that they wanted us to focus on. Then, as I mentioned, Riana and Alex will go into the tools that we have developed, which will be publicly available to you, if not now, soon. So just briefly, the crash modification factors or multiplicative factors used to estimate countermeasures expected safety benefit in terms of crash reduction. Maybe rumble strip will reduce crashes 37% for this type of crashes at this time of day, at this kind of location, that kind of thing. They can help identify countermeasures that have the greatest safety benefit. So many times you can address a safety problem with several different ways. So in order to compare the benefit cost of the countermeasures of doing it several different ways, we can use the CMFs. Most CMFs are based on a limited number of study sites, sometimes very geographically specific, and under very certain conditions. And it's all down in the fine print, and nobody's got time to read fine print anymore. And so that's kind of part of the genesis of this project, is for us to read the fine print and provide to you kind of Cliff's Notes version of that. So hopefully it can speed you up when you're having to use these, and maybe more people will use them if it's easier to go about using them. And then we have CMFs for different crash types and different crash severities, and by urban and rural classifications, there are tons of them. That's a technical term. Something like, I think I'll cover this in a minute, something like almost 8,000 of them available in Crash Modification Clearinghouse alone. So the CMFs can be used to estimate a monetary value of safety benefit over a given study period. We've heard benefit cost analysis mentioned several times at this conference already. Now the benefits don't necessarily accrue to the same folks that are bearing the cost. That's the public sector, it's the world that we live in. But in order to compare a safety project to, say, a pavement project or some other economic development project, one needs to quantify all three of them to get an idea of which one is more cost effective. And the CMF can also be applied to the observed crashes that we see in what we call a naive before and after. So you go out to some site and say, I've got 10 crashes, and so give me a countermeasure, reduce 20% of the crashes, you expect 10 to go down to 8. Well, that sounds very reasonable, and the general public can understand that, and it's easy to communicate. But what's difficult to communicate is it's not that easy just to say we had 10, now we're going to have 8. And so as everything that we do becomes more complex, we're hoping that this tool can help you to apply them. Let's get that and go straight into here. So there are oftentimes multiple CMFs for any given countermeasure. And one should apply those CMFs only to the crashes that really they're intended to mitigate. So whenever they develop these CMFs in the first place, they'll run models or on a set of data. Well, if you've got if the area they ran the model on was similar to the area that you want to use the CMF for, that's all well and good. But many times it can be much different under much different conditions and produce widely varying results. So you should know which crash types that you're targeting in your design.
And the countermeasures that reduce one crash type might actually increase another crash type. So that also has to be considered. A lot of times we only like to look at the positive contributions that something makes, but we need to be looking at the whole system when we do things. So the chief source of CMFs, I mean, and this was a great thing, I'll call the Crash Modification Clearinghouse. It was great to have all these in one place, and it's since being revised, and I think it's even under change even today. But there are more than 7,500 of these things in there. And so when an engineer or an analyst or a planner is looking at doing something, that's a daunting task. I mean, if you printed the thing out, it'll be this thick, find the page that's got the right one for you to use. But what's in the CMF Clearinghouse comes from many, many studies. Some of them come out of the Highway Safety Manual, which in turn got their information from many, many studies, NCHRP studies, research reports worldwide. So there's even crash modification factors in here that were taken in countries that may have really very little in common with the United States or your state in particular. So one of the goals of this project was to get feedback from the Kentucky CMF users and identify the needs. So that was part of that presentation that Eric led in 2019. We had consultants in the room, and we took a poll, and people gave us their thoughts of what should be included in this system. And then subsequently, we worked a lot with cabinet, different areas, design, planning, safety, to come up with the set of CMFs that Kentucky most needs. We created a database of I should put quotes around this pre-approved design CMFs, because initially, and Mike was here, he probably helped me say this a little bit better, Mike Vaughn, was to kind of have a pre-approved list so that you would know if you're working on a project, you're a consultant, or if you're somebody working on a design team, that the CMF that you chose was going to be all good to go, and that somebody wouldn't question the use of that particular CMF, sort of that, when it's too late or they're very expensive or you're under time crunch, that kind of thing. So knowing ahead of time. So kind of a pre-approved list, and then a tool to help you select from that. So last introductory slide that I'll show is the list of countermeasures. And I know you can't read it in the back because I don't think I can even read it in the front, but I can tell you that there were 40 different countermeasure types that were selected by the cabinet for us to work on. I'll just read a few of them to you. You can get a sense, and you can look at this in more detail on the internet. Intersection improvement was actually ranked #1 in terms of people's interest in finding CMFs that were practical to use. Striping, guardrail, signing, shoulder widening, rumble strips, pavement markings, those types of things. Pretty much runs the gamut. There are a few that didn't make it. I don't think we have roundabouts on here, maybe a couple of others, but the ones that didn't make it were the ones that were not used very often. We really wanted to focus on, the 90-10 rule or the 95-5 rule and get most of the CMFs in here. And so from there, we started working on analyzing the information that was available and producing it in a form that would be most convenient and helpful. And you can be the judge of that if you want to maybe take a look at the system and let us know. Some of you may have already seen it. I believe yesterday Jared Stanley said that our spreadsheets, Riana, why don't you come on up? She's going to talk about the spreadsheet tool first. I believe the spreadsheets are already in the DDSA. Is that what he said? Anybody remember DDSA website? I believe he did. Has anybody seen this before on the DDSA website that's in here? Okay. I believe if you just Google KYTC DDSA, you'll find it. But that is external, isn't it? That's not just an internal. Anybody know? They're on there, but is it available to the public, to consultants, or is it just what do you call it, intranet?
The intent was, I don't know if they published it yet.
Okay, so we should be there, and I'll have to defer to Mike. More comments on that. Yeah, come on up.
Can you hear me okay? Good afternoon, everyone. So now I am going to talk about the spreadsheet tool. As Dr. Souleyrette has already mentioned that there are more than 7,000 CMFs in the CMF clearinghouse. So sometimes it becomes a bit tricky to choose an appropriate CMF or a CMF that we actually desire. So as you have seen this list before, apart from the 5 countermeasures marked with a red asterisk, we have one spreadsheet tool for each of the countermeasures. And those spreadsheets have CMF from CMF clearinghouse. So what we do is we use the countermeasure name to search for the CMFs in the CMF clearinghouse. And in any case, if the results, we feel that the results are limited or we cannot find any results, we use some modified keywords. For example, if you search by curve widening or curve flattening, no results come up. So we use the word say curve to find about curve widening and flattening. And for lane widening or narrowing, we also incorporated lane width to get more results into that. So CMF clearinghouse actually lets you extract the data set in Excel spreadsheet format, and every spreadsheet looks exactly the same. The format is the same. So there are in total 59 columns in each of the spreadsheet, and the column names are here. The green, the highlighted ones are the ones that our research team thought might be helpful to narrow down the CMF that you want to look for. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the format of the spreadsheet. So in each of the spreadsheet, you are going to find 3 tabs. The first one is the CMF filters. So it is a filterable sheet that you use to search for the CMF you desire, but it has limited information in it, mostly these columns, the highlighted columns that you can see in here to make it less clumsy for you. On the other hand, the all information tab, it has every information that we have extracted from the CMF clearinghouse. So for example, if you need any more information about the CMF, you can look at this tab and get more information on that CMF. There's one more tab, and that is the non-US CMF. So if you cannot find a CMF in the CMF filters tab, you can look at this non-US CMF, but there's a disclaimer that it has CMFs developed from data outside US, so we have to use that with caution. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the CMF filters tab. So the countermeasure name that was split into 2 categories, countermeasure group and countermeasure subgroup. So the countermeasure group is like a more generalized countermeasure, and the subgroup is more specified. I can explain it with an example. So the first one is lane width, or countermeasure related to lane width is the main countermeasure. The countermeasure group is lane narrowing and lane widening. And if you want to be more specific, like reduce the lane width from 12 to 9 or 10 or 11, we can go to the countermeasure subgroup. And for the widening, it's like increase the lane width by 1 feet or increase lane width from like 11 to 12, etc. And I have one more example at the bottom too. Now, to make it more user-friendly, we have color-coded the columns so that it's easy for you to go through the steps. So the primary filters are in bright yellow color, and the secondary filters are the peach orange. You will find the CMF in blue, and we also have some comments for you and some additional information with gray. Okay, for the primary filters, we can go step by step so that it becomes it can narrow down the number of CMFs. So once we open up the spreadsheet that we want, we can start with filtering the countermeasure group, or in some cases, we can call it like precondition. And then the countermeasure subgroup, like more specified information or the post condition. In step 2, and this does not come into any order. I mean, you can start with any of them according to your need. There are like crash type, crash severity, you have roadway type, and area type. And in the third step, we can also look at the star rating or the standard error. If we still think that we have ended up with a couple of CMFs and we need some more details to choose from those, we can go for the secondary filters. So we have the state from which the CMF has been developed, if it's intersection related or not, If no, then we can look for the average traffic volume. If yes, then major and minor traffic volume. We have number of lanes, intersection geometry, like 3-leg or 4-leg, uncontrolled intersection or signalized, or it's divided or undivided, etc. So let me show you a quick demonstration here so that it's screen sharing.
Just go ahead and do the one at the top left, if you would, please, and that'll keep it on the whole time. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption. So in here, I'm showing you a spreadsheet that is for lighting. And you will notice that right now there are 77 CMFs in here. So now we are going to narrow down. Let me give you one example. Let's start filtering with countermeasure group. So I will start with illumination or install lighting. Then for the subgroup, I have like in general and highway lighting. So let's go for highway lighting. And you will already see that there are only 5 of them right now. We can go even further, like crash time. Let's go for nighttime crashes. For severity, I can go for all crashes. And yes, we end up with only 1 CMF. And there is one column that might interest you. Just before that, just remember that the CMF ID was 5160. So if you click on the additional information, it will take you to the all information tab at the CMF ID of 5160. So you can look at all the information like the study and then every other detail that we have got from CMF Clearinghouse. Let me try one more quickly. So if we want to start a new search, we can clear our filters and try one more time. This time, let's start with the intersection lighting. And for the subgroup, we have 2 options, from low to medium or install lighting. So let's go for install lighting. For the crash type, let me go for nighttime. For severity, I'm going for all. And still there are a couple of them. So for the roadway type, it's not specified, as you can see. So let's move to the next step. For the area type, we can go for say rural, and we end up with 2 of them with the same star rating if we look at it, star rating of 3. But if you notice at the secondary filters, you will see that for the traffic control type, there's 1 for signalized intersections and 1 for stop control. So you can pick whichever you feel you want to use. So yep, that is from my part. Now I will welcome Alex for the next step. Spend with you. Thank you.
Okay, so as you already say, the existing or the first generation, the Excel spreadsheet based tool. So we actually developed another tool called the online web-based tool. It's powered by the Windows Power BI. Because for the spreadsheet tool, we have some limitations here. The first thing is the CMF Clearinghouse is dynamic, it keeps changing over time. And actually, I think in February and March this year, the CMF Clearinghouse have a major update to the star rating system. So some of the stars was like 3-star, they were promoted to 4 stars. Some of them they are like higher stars, but they are degraded to like 1 stars like that. So it's been changing, and also over the years they were being adding or deleting some of the CMFs in the database. So we want to keep easy way to keep updating the CMF parameters. And also when we talked with Wang, we said, okay, so this tool will be hopefully will be available for either, for both the internal use of KYTC and also for other consultants outside. So if we give this spreadsheet to, I think currently we have 36 or 37 spreadsheets based on the different countermeasures. So it could be, a problem is how to keep everyone using the same version over time and keep them up to date. So we want to make sure everyone on the same page. So with all those limitations, so we developed the online web-based tool. So it will be easier to update because it's still like a database of Excel, Microsoft Excel, Access database based on, it's linked to the Microsoft Power BI platform. And it's also easier to use. So one tool, you don't need to open the different spreadsheets. One tool will cover all the 34 spreadsheets. And we also have the mobile version available. I will show you what the mobile version looks like. So even you are in the field, if you're without a computer, it's very easy to pull your phone and just open the link and you can see it's on your phone. All the filters, everything's customized to the mobile use. Then the last one will be, so we will have, make sure, because everyone uses the link, so everyone will be using the same version on the same page. So the visioning is still required, but it will be easier because every time, like at your end, at our end, if you push a newer version, if you add any update, the user will see the latest one. So this is the general, the user interface would look like. We try to keep it easier to use, and we try to fit everything to one page as a report. This will be your online version, the desktop version. So as you can see here, we'll go part by part. The first part, we are similar. We have the similar structure as your existing spreadsheets too. So we'll have the parameter deciders or the filters, which covers all those same fields if you're using the Excel tools. We also include the secondary deciders, which also the parallel structure to the spreadsheets too here. For the results section, those are a few fields we identified the most interested for the users. But for any particular CMF, there's always a way you can see. You can click on the CMF ID to go to the web page of the clearinghouse, so we can read all the details, which studies come from, and the more details. And pay attention to here, there's because for the CMF, actually the number CMF, some of them they have a number here, but some of the CMF is based on equation. I think, for example, like the shooter or the length width, I think if you extend from 10 feet to 12 feet or to 13 feet, sometimes they don't really give you a direct number on the changes. It's all based on your ADT and based on other parameters with the equation. So for that case, so since this is like all table formatted, it's hard to show that like a graphic-based format equation, so we'll provide the link. So for example, here for the second to the bottom, the CMF ID 6677. So we say, okay, we don't really say the directly give the CMF number is, so we have, okay, click on the CMF ID for details. If you click on that, then we'll see what other parameters you use. But go to the CMF Clearhouse website, and you can see what it is. So for the mobile version, this is the layout of the mobile version, and actually I used it on my own cell phone and show the exact. On the top, we will have the total number of CMF. You select the result on the top. It's kind of pinned in there. So when you scroll down, you can also step by step, you can pick all those parameters. It will show, it's kind of like give you the same result as the web version. It's just more user-friendly on your mobile device. Now I'll give you a demo here.
Okay, so this is the same. So as you can see here, that's when you first open the web link. I think when they publish on the KYC website, you probably don't have access to a lot of other control panels, but you will have this in report face open. So here, you don't see all the deciders or the filters you can select at the beginning. The reason is like we talked with the engineer at KYTC, so I think they prefer to have a way for those people who don't have much experience with CMF. So they will start with one step at a time. We'll start at step 1. So that's all your main parameters. So you can see all those numbers in the front are matching with the existing expressions. So for example, I think earlier Riana showed the example of the lighting. So let's do the same one, take the lighting. So you can see before you select any, there's over 3,000, I think 3,315 total CMF in the database. So once you select lighting, you have 93 left. And that's also include both. So we combined the US and the non-US CMF into one, but in the result, if it's non-US, we'll have the field set, the cell will say it's no USA. So also there's another way you can actually search. You can use the search function here to search any keywords. So if you're not sure what exactly you're looking for, you can always use the search function to search the keywords, and it'll make it much easier for you to pick the one you want. After you have step 1, you click step 2, you have the count measures. I think the one we had, is which one? Install lighting. You click that, you have 48. You have step 3. We'll select all the highway lightings, then you have only 5 left. We can keep going with all the different filters by crash type. You can have all the crash type only at nighttime, then you have 4 filter CMF left. For the severity, you want all, then you have only 1. Then if this is like from the CMF clear house, so we don't have the star rating. But then if you want details, you can always click on the CMF ID. You will go to the CMF Clearhouse website for this particular CMF. Then you can get more information on this CMF itself. Also, if you want to read even more details, where they performed the study, where the paper comes from, who they worked on this, you will have the results here too. Go back to the 2. So from the 2, let me do a start over. So you can always do the start over to clean all the filters you select at the beginning. But if you already get familiar with the tool itself, you can always click on the show all deciders or all filters. So this button, if you click on show all, it will give you all the different filters. If you said, okay, I'm only interested in the study from certain state, say Kentucky. We have actually 19 results, but this is like only Kentucky. But if some other studies we performed in Kentucky and other states, you can select all of those. So you can see those. And also if you want, so that's like, it's all cross-referenced with each other. It's all kind of like all the different filters, they all like linked with each other inside. So you don't need to worry about if you pick one, then you maybe miss another one, so it's all linked. So if we select rumble strip, then you can see we have sample ID, CMF, the actual CMF number, the star ratings. Then you have some comments here. Click another one here for details. So maybe let's take a look. Maybe this is the one from someone at the KTC did this. Is this name ringing some bell for some people? Sorry.
I think you work for a cabinet to develop these.
Okay.
Provided data.
Okay. I was just looking for whether there's any people here we close the, So this is basically the tool, and I think I also collect another link, it's an open instruction, so I attach a PDF file, kind of like a user menu. I gave to Mike Wang, so I think in the final version they publish online, they will attach this link to the PDF files. When you want to open this, so if you click the KYTC website, it will go to the website. And if you like click this information icon when it's linked with the PDF file to open the PDF file for the instructions. But overall, this tool here is very straightforward. So I don't think it will actually have any learning curve for anyone. So this is what I have. All right, I think the next we'll turn back to Raj and he will wrap up.
Thanks, Albert.
Yeah, just want to kind of recap the original goal of the project, which I think was a little, we didn't think we were going to get in as much as we did. We thought we were going to be producing a list of CMFs that we put on a piece of paper and pass around to everybody and say, here's the ones that you need to use. But the more we look into it, the more we decided, if you do that, you're going to force people into using something that's really not right for their project. On the other hand, when you open it up to 7,500 crash modification factors, good luck picking the right one, or maybe you just find one and you don't know how many others there are, so you just take that one and use it. So this is a sort of a hybrid between those two. You notice that the numbers were a little different. I said there were 7,500 CMFs in the clearinghouse, but Alex said we started off with like 3,800, something like that. Well, we're only looking at those 40 countermeasures that Kentucky Transportation Cabinet wants to look at. So there's lots of stuff in the CMF clearinghouse that wouldn't be applicable to those. Further, if you use the search tools that are in the CMF clearinghouse, it'll oftentimes return non sequiturs or things that have no bearing on what you're wanting to do, consuming your time. And so I think that this helps to at least narrow that a little bit. So it still allows for plenty of engineering judgment, but gives you a lot more, pointed way of doing a direct way of actually doing it. And one more thing I wanted to say, a little note, while I was over there, I don't have any paper, so text message to myself. Oh, yes, we have organized this into primary deciders and secondary deciders by thinking through the process, but it could very well be that one of the secondary deciders is the most important thing to you on your project. In other words, you've got to have something that represents the state of Kentucky. Then you've got to go to the state of Kentucky and you got to put that filter on first, even though it's down a little bit lower. So you do have the flexibility. You don't have to go step 1, step 2, step 3. You go down to step 6. By the time you're down to step 6 and you got nothing up here, then you got to go back up here and relax some of the constraints. So you get a wider field to choose from, because something a little bit lower down is going to be what you really want to focus on. I could see an evolution of this. It would be a smarter system that would help you to do that, going in. But I think this is pretty easy to use. The last thing that I was going to comment on is when we first started this project, we put together, or William put together this form that was taken from several other states. It's kind of a pre-approval form for using CMFs on projects. I'm not quite sure where we stand right now on that. I think for the HSET projects, this is my long question. For the other projects, I guess it's however the cabinet wants to handle it. If they want to have this form filled out with every project that uses a CMF, or is just using these tools good enough? Do we have a way right now of documenting all of the filters that a person selected in coming up with the final CMF of use?
We can, but just add another function called like take a screenshot of bookmark.
Yeah, I think that would be good to have like a reporting function at the very end. You click a button, it says, here's how I set the filters to come up with the CMF that I used. And maybe that pre-populates this, or even maybe goes up to the web. And that way you don't have to write another report. And that could be the procedure. So let me get with Mike and talk about the way that we can make that convenient. And with that, take questions or any comments on how we could do this differently. Or Paul?
Is the reason that it's listed step, because of the way the spreadsheet was laid out, or is that process driven based on how people have to select it? Because as somebody who's never seen the tool before, my intuition is that I have to do all of the steps.
Yes.
And I would not know, looking at the tool, what filters might be available without a whole lot of button clicking.
Yes.
In a future iteration, would it make sense maybe to just label the filters and then allow the users to select them without feeling like they have to walk through it as a process?
Yes, and yes, perfect. I'm not arguing against it. I think that's exactly the way to do it. It was a bit of a, if you have to put it in some order, this is a reasonable order to put it in, but it doesn't really constrain you, but it might make you think you're constrained to that. The documentation that Alex talked about does tell about that. But as you know, maybe not everybody reads the instructions. They just go straight to the tool and use it. We could probably make it a little more intuitive to folks. We also want to keep it clean and not have a whole bunch of, instructions on there, but let's take that into account as well. Thank you. Good suggestion.
We do have that button to show all the parameters at one time, so I think that's a question when we talked with Mac, and he said they kind of like, they want people to have the full step first, but if they are more familiar, they can click on that to show all filters.
And it's a little hard to see. I think we're running out of time, but this up here says start over and this one says show all deciders. So if you punch that going into it, you'll have everything in front of you. It probably spills off the page, doesn't it, a little bit, or does it spill off the page when you hit the show all, or is it still on one page?
It's on the same.
It's on one page. So.
It's on one page.
Did a pretty good job of managing your real estate there, I think. Now time? Okay. Oh, thanks a lot for coming. Appreciate you.
Yeah, don't forget to fill out your evaluation on the app. Let's give these guys a hand. Next session will start in 10 minutes. Good job, guys.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. I like it.
These going to be